Okay, so chapter 4 is don't laugh. Folks, Jesus really was a poor man. That's a quote from a 1968 Poor People's Campaign that was initiated by Martin Luther King Jr. Theoharis says, how can we understand Jesus' teachings and actions if we don't understand how Roman rule determined living conditions in Galilee and Jerusalem? To understand Jesus' message, do we need to know what was going on in his countryside, Galilee?
Yeah.
Well,
not really.
What? Oh, you don't think so?
To understand his message.
Yeah.
About the poor. Well, the context of that time, I don't know. Is it any different than the context of any other time? I don't know. That's my opinion.
Well,
It does seem to be universal for rich versus poor.
Well, like certain things were started because of stuff. So like the word of wisdom was enacted because the church was needing money. So it was cheaper to not buy alcohol and coffee and stuff.
And that's why there's word of wisdom.
That's why it was like enacted.
And also Emma objected to.
Yeah,
That's the
booze
story
that was
I
in
heard.
their
Yeah.
house.
Yeah, I mean,
She wasn't ready to take the children and leave.
she was.
well, we're getting verdict. The word of wisdom came before
Okay, sorry.
Nauvoo.
That's true.
Oh, that's true.
Oh, that's true.
So
Like the Mormons on the way to Utah really enforced it because there was drinking and smoking and coffee in Nauvoo. And when they left Nauvoo, they had to reinforce it because they couldn't afford to keep buying that kind of stuff.
Well, look at
They were
that.
building the
So
temple.
context.
No, we don't need to go. into
All right,
churches.
so James just,
Let's stick with the
So it does matter.
This
but
is what we're talking
back
about.
up.
Okay,
we're
we're gonna go back to Jesus' time.
Well, Theoharis contends that Roman context is central to understanding Jesus' nature. You can write your own book.
Yeah.
So one thing that I was wondering is, well, how can you understand the Roman context, the Roman rule, when the Gospels hardly mention Roman involvement? So
history.
So think of all. I mean, I didn't read every gospel and write down every note, but I just thought back. Okay, where did they have mentioned Roman rule or Roman involvement or anything? Let's start with. So, what does it say about Jesus' birth?
Yeah, the big tax season.
Okay.
before.
Okay, so there's mention the decree went out from Emperor Augustus. So there's a mention of the emperor. Pretty cool. Just ignore me. Then later, and then that's gonna, but don't move my PowerPoint.
We're in trouble, Manny.
I'll have to go to my own printed
We're
material.
struggling. We're making our part.
You'll have to get on.
Hey, we were out there trying to find a hanger.
Okay.
Oh,
I apologize.
We're on a hanger.
We're on a hanger.
I just had another.
Uh-oh.
See, that's why I put my coat on.
Now we're in. Stop here.
Well, I don't work for those.
Well, they just have to.
I did find a new footage this week.
You want to get into?
Nope.
Just kind of switch it.
Yeah, that's what I do. I just do
I cause more problems than I'm worth. I don't need PowerPoint.
Thank you. It's good.
Yeah. They have to change it.
I've got mine printed out below, so PowerPoint is.
That was Jonathan.
It's terrible. What do they do with their books in between?
But it's Santa Claus.
Well, oh, they're all on iPads. They're all on. Do they have iPads or do they have computers?
Oh, yeah,
Sure,
I'll have
you
to
mentioned
put another chair
gifts.
over for Jonathan.
There's one right there.
Yeah, I noticed the guy where he was.
Okay,
I'm
just
just
saying.
I know,
Bad
I
books.
Okay,
We can bring one of the ones we got.
You need a team first.
okay, back to class.
Back to class?
We're in the
All
Roman
side
Empire.
discussions can
Are we?
stop. Okay, so we were talking about, when do you think Roman rule or anything about Rome was mentioned in the Gospels? I'm just talking about the Gospels. I don't want to get into
Okay.
Paul's stuff, but in the Gospels. So the decree went forth from the Emperor Augustus. In the 15th year, Tiberius was the emperor. These are in Luke. Can you think of stories that Jesus told or were told about Jesus? You can
Yeah.
you can share one because you can make the screen.
He's cheating.
I would say the census,
The census, okay, that was in the decree.
the decree.
Okay,
The,
great.
the question about money, render under Caesar,
Give to
it
Caesar
is Caesar's.
the things that are Caesar's, okay.
The tax collectors.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, but they could have been collecting just for
Well, they could, but
Herod. Now, who was Herod?
That's true. I mean,
Herod?
he
local,
was
yeah.
king.
He was the patron
King.
for Augustus, so.
No, it's still the same thing. He's like the governor.
Oh, yeah. I was gonna say that the story of Zacchaeus or,
Well, he was tax.
Yeah, he was the tax.
yeah, but I think he was
Okay.
collecting as well as.
Well, yeah. But Rome doesn't really come up. You have to know
Yeah,
that
Yeah,
this was a client state for the Roman Empire,
okay.
which that doesn't really come out. does it?
we do. We know it because we know the context.
Okay, so that's the context. Okay. Well, how about, can you think of any stories?
Any of Jesus' story?
Yeah. How about Jesus? Okay, he healed somebody.
Oh, Jairus,
Oh, Jairus was not.
No, the Roman centurion's daughter.
The centurion had a slave.
Oh, his slave. That's-
Oh.
Jairus,
I get all my stories.
Jairus had a
mixed up.
daughter. that got healed. So the centurion slave was healed. So there's a one to mention. Okay, how about at the end?
The
Yeah, we
crucifixion
all know.
and the trial.
So before that, the chief priest and these are all things I thought of. So if you can think of some more, I'm welcome to share. So Jesus, they said, well, what are we going to do about this guy? He's healing people and doing miracles, and pretty soon he's going to cause a revolt. The Romans will try to destroy us. That's a mention. Romans will destroy us. So we need to do something. So then in John, it mentions that Judas brought a detachment of soldiers. Well, they could have been Herod's soldiers. Then you've got, crowd says we have no king but Caesar. Pilate, a Roman guy, releases Barabbas, Jesus to death. You have the crucifixion and the soldiers at the tomb. Any other things that you can think about? So Rome is not mentioned a lot. I guess I was trying. But in the book, she says that Jesus, the fact Jesus was a poor man is significant to his message. Some people think Jesus was a middle-class carpenter. But in the book, she says that she quotes Crossan, who's John Dominic Crossan's a big scholar of the New Testament. He says there wasn't a middle class. So how could Jesus be a middle class carpenter if there wasn't even a middle class?
I always thought,
Okay. I think it's pretty. Let's look at what did Jesus own?
essentially nothing. Maybe the clothes on his back.
According to the Gospel of John, I looked this one up. It says the soldiers who crucified him took his clothes and divided them into four parts, one for each soldier. So, and then they cast lots because he had a seamless tunic, and they didn't want to carry these four parts. So it sounds like Jesus owned
Clothes on his
clothes on
back.
his back.
Well, he probably had stuff, up until he started his ministry at the age of 33. But then when he started going out and preaching and teaching, then he left that all behind. gave it to the poor.
Think so? Didn't say that. scripture.
I thought he
I
lived at
just
home
imagine
until
he
he
would.
went on his work.
Well, he
yeah.
didn't sit around for 32.
You know, he worked, I assumed he worked with his father, but
Right, right.
Lived in his father's house.
yeah, but I don't.
He went to China.
So can we all agree Jesus was a poor man? At least we'll agree on that.
Yes.
Joyce?
Heard that somewhere.
I agree.
Agree. Good.
I thought he was middle class.
It's, some people have said he was middle class.
Boy, they're really looking through the eyes of.
Well, I think they were looking at saying,
Now.
well, maybe a carpenter was better off than a day labor. So,
We're slave.
so if Jesus was a poor man, how would you look at it from a political, economic, or a spiritual aspect? Are there implications to his being poor? Okay. Here he is supposed to be king, but he's a poor king.
He does say that in the Beatitudes, blessed are the poor. Maybe he was being literal.
Okay.
I've always wondered about that. Beatitude.
There are more poor people than rich people back in the day.
Oh,
Yeah,
definitely.
There's always more.
What do you
Okay,
think?
so maybe he was trying to go with birds.
What do you mean, being the majority?
Yeah,
I think
more people can relate to his message.
I think one thing we know about people who are poor, they tend to be more compassionate. They share more. People.
well,
Here.
okay.
Some do. Some
Well,
do.
to Steve's point, Theoharis mentioned several scholars. Some said 99% of people were poor.
Right.
Some said, well, more conservatively, at least 70, 80, or 90%. Most people were poor.
Bigger money.
And he also had the indication because he told his apostles to go out and not take anything with them. To, just,
That's right.
depend on
Leave your
life
fisher-
as it came to him, basically.
Leave your fishing nets behind.
Us versus,
Well,
and
I
the
don't-
masses versus the bad.
I was gonna say, I don't know if Jesus looked at it us versus them. I think he tried to open the eyes of those who had to look at the poor, that they were equal in many ways. Well, I don't know. I can't put it.
You get a good start.
So somebody else.
He was looking at, he
Well,
was trying to
equity,
make the world equitable.
We're
Yeah.
looking at this from an American viewpoint as well.
Sure.
Yeah.
And when we went to Thailand, when April was 4 years old, the average Thai income was $3 a day. And when you think of other countries that, they don't have the level of money or resources that we have, it's easier to see that there were more poor and that the poor were, the majority at that time.
Theoharis says that, he quotes Patterson, he says that Jesus knew expendability, he knew expendables. He invited those who had not what he said has fallen out of the Roman system of brokerage and patronage to step out voluntarily. So if you're powerful or rich, he was on those that were the elite. He was asking them to step out voluntarily to become part of this new kingdom of God. That would have been quite a step, wouldn't it?
Well, but he had some that came.
Like who? Who took it, who offered his food?
Yeah, what's his name?
You know, that's him.
That one guy.
I can't think of his
Joseph
name.
of Arimathea.
Yes. Thank
Okay.
you.
So there was one guy,
Yeah. But he had,
the
well, what
rich
about,
ruler that came to Jesus. And then he walked away because Jesus said, "Well, give all your money."
Yeah, that's the sad
to
guy.
be
He
perfect,
couldn't step out
he
of the
was-
system.
He was very
what
sad.
about Lazarus and his sisters? I always saw them as being affluent.
They had a house.
Yeah.
It wasn't like Jesus, they weren't homeless. Why was Jesus poor?
I'd say by choice.
Well,
That's a choice.
people choose to be poor.
What did you say, Debbie?
I wonder what happened to the gold and frankincense and myrrh.
Oh, well, maybe they had to use it when
I
they
know, but we never
traveled.
heard about that.
I know.
The rest of the.
Or maybe they gave it to other people that needed. Yeah, give it to the other poor. Sure,
His
but
parents auctioned it off, you know, when he.
Well, think in terms of
Yeah.
context, why Jesus might be poor.
Well, she mentions that, you know, if Jesus was a carpenter, if Joseph was a carpenter, then that put them in the artisan class, which was below the peasant class. They were poorer than peasants, but hardly peasants. And I've heard that before, so it may be a John Dominic Posen thing that he came up with.
Okay.
But, you know, he didn't, you know, he certainly didn't come out of a class of people that put well.
Okay. Back to the Roman context. So when Rome took over the Middle East, at least Israel, and Syria, and those countries, some people, that expansion led to some being wealthy, people being poor. How did they accomplish that? First of all, they took some of the nation's wealth, confiscated their gold or timber or whatever. They had to pay tribute.
I'll tell him.
They paid taxes.
They're all Belgian.
They had temple taxes as well. So Caesar, Herod, and the temple priest
yeah,
all got some of the what little money the possessions the villagers had. She made an interesting point. She said that there was a transition in the economy, and that people had been on subsistence farming or fishing, just getting what they needed for their own daily needs, but they went into a production mode, and eventually that led to villagers being forced off their land. And when you lost your land, that was your livelihood. So you ended up being a day laborer just to get enough to survive. And then the Romans forced some into being slaves. So all these things were contributors to people being poor.
In my mind, that's kind of similar to migrant farm workers in our day and age.
yeah.
You know, we usually think of that group being really, you know, in poverty because of the obligations that they have to give money back to the owner of the land or, you know, whoever.
Well, last week,
And that's kind of the condition that the people were in. They
Yeah.
lost their land and now they're migrant farm workers too.
and we think back into the Reconstruction era in our own country, the tenant farmers, particularly black farmers, they were in this situation where each year they would go into debt. And like the other stories you talk about, company towns where they have, you know, they keep track of your debts, and so as time goes by, you're further and further
Deeper in debt.
deeper in debt, you know, because the way the system works. So between taxes, and then also they were going into a monetary system. I don't think they're maybe getting away from the barter system that maybe the local people used. And so when you start using money, all these things, they end up in debt or in debtor's prison. When they had to borrow money because they had a poor harvest, their debt got larger. Finally, you lose your land. But what happened? What did the people do when they lost their land? That Theoharis said. I don't think we're really aware of this so much from reading the New Testament.
Well, they don't put it all in their car.
But she says that people didn't just, do nothing. They started resisting. Some of them became bandits. Who was Jesus crucified between?
Yeah, 2 thieves.
So, and she says that there was banditry, and there are several prophetic and messianic movements besides Jesus movement. You don't really hear about a lot of those. So, and then this resistance, go back to Jesus in Luke. What did Jesus say his mission was? The Spirit of the Lord. Is on. Now read this a little differently. I think we kind of take it spiritual. The Spirit of the Lord is upon me because He anointed me to bring good news to the poor, sent me to proclaim release to the captives. Just talk about slaves, recovery of sight to the blind, to let the oppressed go free, to proclaim the Lord, hear of the Lord's favor. Doesn't this suggest that the slavery, taxation, and debt were central concerns of Jesus' message? Or do we want to spiritualize that and say it's more about?
I think it can be read both ways,
Okay,
but
maybe you meant it both ways.
yeah, but
Go ahead.
the more you learn about the economic situation, it, I think, deepens your understanding of what he could have meant.
Anybody else?
How does this relate to that 7-year rule, where every 7 years you give it all back or something?
Well,
The Jubilee.
yeah, there was, the debt was forgiven after 7 years. And then after 49 years, land was returned to the original owner.
I don't think the Romans followed that rule though, did they? That was the Jewish law.
That was Jewish, that was the Deuteronomic Code.
Yeah.
But did they even practice it?
Well, there's been people debate that.
Yeah,
And there was some guy, Hillel, I think he devised a scheme to get work around it so that they could have charged interest even when they weren't supposed to. Well, how do you think that might work if you were owed a debt and it was forgiven? Would that be good news for you?
I would struggle a little bit with the other person.
Okay.
Well, what's going to happen to the banker? Okay,
Well-
banker forgives all the loans. So wait a minute.
When he makes a loan, what do you think he might do if he knew in 7 years he would forgive it? Would he make sure they could repay the loan?
Assuming you have to make your interest payments, the interest in those days was quite high. It was set at 12% by the Roman Empire, but it could be up to 20%. So if you gave somebody $100 for 7 years and you collected the interest at 20%, you got back more than what you loaned.
Right.
So your principal was protected basically, and all you're forgiving is, money that wasn't.
makes it,
given back
it makes
to
it
you.
easier to forgive if you've
Yeah,
got
it's easier
that
to
kind of
forgive.
interest
Hard
for
to
20
forgive.
years. Yeah.
What do you-
It's familiar. We do that. No.
It's kind of a system, I mean, that's balanced against the person taking out the loan.
Do you think, how do you think the wealthy viewed that? Do you think they tried to work around it?
Well, I think they try to work around it. I mean,
Okay.
okay, so at 6 years, I'm gonna sell everything.
Okay.
But somebody else has to be the one that gives it up or something.
What do you think the objective was of the Deuteronomic Code anyway? Why they had that?
I've struggled with that one. I don't know.
Well,
I think maybe,
I'm open to other people's thoughts. But
okay, Coral.
I was gonna say to create some equity
Okay, so
between the poor and the, not equal, not exact, but maybe so that they can at least meet their basic needs, keep their land, and start
Yeah,
over again.
There was a basic understanding of the early Israelites that God gave them the land.
okay.
and it wasn't theirs to own.
Okay,
And so the code, their Deuteronomy, made a lot of sense because they could redistribute every once in a while. But that's pre-Roman Empire conquering Israel and Judea.
right.
And so all those rules are out the window. That's why they've never practiced it, because they've never had a chance to. There's always some conquering force that preceded the family of Israel following that code.
Well, do you think if they had been over practice, that the inequality would have been reduced?
Well, it would have, if they really practiced it, they would have been.
As time goes by, if you every 49 years the land returns to the original owner, doesn't that prevent the accumulation? So you've got this wide disparity between wealthy accumulating more and more and more, and the poor getting less and less and less.
Yeah, it does.
It kind of equalizes it
You also
more.
have to figure out who owned the land initially. If God owns the land and it's divided equally among all the people, then every 49 years it goes back to that situation.
Right.
Wouldn't it? I mean, in theory, it's never happened, but in theory.
Was the lifespan more than 49 years?
Well,
That's the Jubilee,
really interesting
every, 7 times 7.
That's probably about one lifespan in those days, average.
Yeah.
I mean, that's,
So the original owner isn't around anymore, is what I was trying to get at.
well, it
But,
kind of,
there are cultural aspects to ownership too. In this country, when the white man came from Europe, they encountered Native Americans who didn't understand the concept of ownership of the
Yeah.
land. It was there, and they
They used it.
enjoyed it because whoever had allowed them to do that, but they didn't. That was a difficulty that they had, was understanding ownership when white people came in and said, well, we're going to claim this for ourselves. Here's a deed that proves it is mine, and that kind of stuff. So there's.
Did they build a house or live in a tent?
Who?
Any of them. So if they had lived in a tent, okay, they pull up stakes and move it someplace else. They lived in a house.
well, if you look at the archaeology, you're talking about the Middle East.
Yeah.
Oh,
In the Middle East, I mean, they typically lived in villages made out of
Made out of what?
rubble, I assume, stone.
the Bedouins would travel.
So, yeah, there were people.
Nomadic people.
Yeah, no man.
Well, the early Canaanites who became the Israelites were nomadic peoples initially, back in the
Really good.
2000 second millennium BC.
Okay.
There were I think a lot of peoples were migratory in those days. You kind of went where, if the weather got bad, the land dried up, you pick up your tent and go somewhere else.
Well,
Yeah.
Some of the Native Americans, they would build long houses, but they would
Right.
travel for the hunting and, yeah, follow the weather.
Well, my take on it would be that the Israelites had permanent dwellings. That I suppose the shepherds out there in the fields, I suppose he didn't have a dwelling.
Yeah.
But he probably came back to a home eventually. I think that was Jesus. Where did Jesus live? Was he homeless?
I don't know. When did people start having addresses?
Part of the problem is we're trying to apply that code in Deuteronomy to a situation that is not equivalent today. So no matter how you look at it, we are not a community all of one faith. We have other forces, capitalistic forces, democratic forces at work. And so that 7 years, 49 years, 50 years doesn't work. And it's like everything else in the Bible, it has to be interpreted in terms of our time period, what applies and what doesn't apply.
Well, do you mean it doesn't work, or does it mean we haven't tried to make it work?
It's pretty much impossible to try to make it work.
Well, what did Joseph Smith do? Didn't he try? I see the storehouses as Joseph Smith trying. And it didn't work. Because the rich started getting resentful.
Well, more, yeah.
Help me now, little people.
Well.
The rich
came in-
started getting, they got
They thought they were
resentful
getting
because there were
free.
too many poor. joining the church because they needed land and homes and money, and so he had to revise the rules. So,
Yeah, Theoharis seems to denigrate charity. And I don't think that's fair. I disagree with her on that. I think it's through charity that we do whatever equalization we can do.
I would argue against that because I don't think you can reach the scale you need to do it though.
Well, taxes to charity.
Well,
We can
taxes
come a
aren't
lot
charity.
closer. We can come a lot closer.
Okay, taxes aren't charity.
If you
though.
want to give up your land or all debts every 7 years, and anybody who owes you, and I mean, it depends on whether
I
they
don't think she's,
Okay.
I don't think she's arguing that far.
No, she's not.
I think she's arguing that we ignore the poor. We ignore their voice. We say, we know what you need. That's what we did to the Native Americans. We know what you need. So here we go. We're giving it to you.
I think what we're hearing from Jonathan is he's arguing for the elite. Sounds like.
I don't think so.
I don't think so.
You don't think so?
Don't go that far, Dennis.
Okay.
Oh
Well,
my
if-
goodness,
if you have-
I'm gonna mediate between the two.
If
of
you have possessions, you are an elite. In
Well,
that
what do you
time,
Okay, so everybody in this room is elite,
yes.
and the person who has just a roof on their back, they're elite because they have something, they have possession.
Well, those that have clothes on his back. You're stretching my point a lot.
You guys are both seem to be doing that, Dennis.
Well, I mean, we do have kind of.
I don't know, I'm curious now.
Going on in our country right now, with 47 million Americans whose, benefits have been cut off, so that the system right now is not working for them, but people are responding, to Jonathan's point, in charitable ways. But the charitable giving probably can't make up for the deficit that's going on with that many people at
Well,
this time.
Tesla-
That's the scale
And
of.
that's what she's saying. She was saying, she's addressing the systemic problem.
Yes.
Right.
Well,
Yes.
if the system's not working, is it wrong to give charity? Well, I'm with Jonathan. I think it's right to give charity until we can get something better, because it's gonna be very hard to.
So as long as we have our system, it's not going to work, what you're saying.
Well, if our system would simply give us back the taxes that would normally go on to feeding the poor and hungry, and let us be charitable, we could do that.
I was
But
gonna
that's not gonna
say,
happen either.
maybe Tesla should give it to the food banks instead of $1 trillion to Elon Musk. That might go a long way.
Well, my wife's Catholic church just did a food drive for starting last Sunday, the Saturday, and they got 8 tons of food in one church. By far the greatest ever.
And that's happening all around the country.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You hear reports of people and organizations.
So if you know somebody personally that has lost their benefits, is it your responsibility to step up?
Is it your responsibility not to? Is it your Christian duty not to?
Jonathan's talking about humanity
Yeah,
and
okay.
just being humane towards our fellow human beings. And people don't think in those terms oftentimes. Many do, but the system does not.
Right.
Definitely.
As long as we have, in Jesus' time,
So if Jesus was talking about humanity and love your neighbor, then how can that not agree with what Jonathan's saying?
okay, explain of being
And then-
charitable.
Yeah, what you
Jesus
do unto
wasn't
others.
opposed to charity,
No,
but he was saying there was bigger issues than just that charity probably wasn't gonna fix it, is the way I would take it. You're in a system that is created for the benefit of the wealthy.
absolutely.
As long as the wealthy have all the wealth, the charity is not gonna be sufficient. All the poor people are poor.
It would be sufficient if everyone was their best human self.
But we all know that we are not.
I know.
Reality.
Is that
And
what-
the system doesn't have to reinforce.
So one other thing, it's called the fact that nature abhors a bag. There's always going to be someone at the lowest spot. in our
Everything's a
society.
spectrum. It all
So
lives.
you're never gonna get everyone equal.
But
There's
some
no-
people are okay with having less than Elon Musk.
Yeah.
A lot of people.
We just want them to
So
have
everything's on a spectrum.
shelter.
Clothing.
Yeah.
That's what, to me, I think you're right. I think there's always gonna be that scale.
Yeah, it's never gonna be equal.
But what this lady is arguing is, we shouldn't have people below that, we shouldn't have that people starving. You know, and so what do we do to the poorest? What do we do for the poorest of the poor?
Well, I think Joyce nailed it. You said if everybody was their best self, we would fix the system. We,
Yeah,
Okay, but you're back to this.
if everybody was their best self, but that's not gonna happen, and that's why the poor will always be with us. Because everybody doesn't always act in their, as their best self.
So how do we change the system?
So we're all arguing against Jesus. He's a naive, optimistic guy that never gonna work.
well, I
That's
think,
what we're all saying.
No, I think he was
No.
offering an alternative to the system,
Okay, the Deuteronomic Code.
whatever it was
for-
called. I
no.
don't know.
Well, what he said, release to the
I
captives.
guess.
You do have a vision of what could be, and you're never even gonna make an attempt to move towards that. And Jesus gave us the vision of what could be, all it would be.
But then we turn around and say, but that's not possible. That won't work.
That's fine.
Everybody
Well,
does. I mean, clearly, she believes that.
She does, yes, I agree.
I mean, you know, she wrote this book so that others would read it and hopefully come along with it.
it's possible, but highly improbable,
Okay.
considering that people are always worried about their own self-interest,
Yeah.
even the billionaires and trillionaires.
Okay, I'm gonna move on. So. Well, let's see what this is. So we know that Herod the Great, and then his sons later who ruled after him, they owed their power to the Emperor Augustus in Rome. So they imposed taxes, had building projects, and other economic policies that supported the Roman plans, hurt the villagers. The elite were the least likely to support any kind of a revolution. Would you agree with that?
Yes.
Okay. So where would a revolution start on the other hand? With the poor, right?
Yeah, I was gonna say most revolutions start with the poor, once they've been pushed too far.
I thought was an interesting fact that she threw out. In the Jewish War of 66 to 70 CE, the first thing the Jewish revolutionaries did, they went to the temple and they burned the debt records. You're not gonna have forgiveness, burn the records.
I like that.
That's-
I would go for that one.
Yeah, I might bring matches.
Student loans and mortgages, needed match.
Well, as we know,
Never fire.
the war didn't end favorably for the revolutionaries. They were
No.
all killed and the temple
Yeah.
was destroyed. But anyway, I thought that was interesting. That shows how debt and economics were important, and they were, she says, key factors that led to the war in the first place. So this is what Theoharis believes, that the poor make history. They drive social, economic, and political transformation. Why would you think she believes that?
Can you repeat that statement?
Theoharis believes that the poor make history, that they're the ones who drive social, economic, and political transformation. Well, if you're the wealthy, do you want the status quo to change?
No. I was gonna say, they want change because they're not getting what they need. And they see all these rich people sitting there with the money piling on top of itself and, you know, they're going deeper and deeper and can't feed their families and such. So they're needing change.
They would be receptive to change.
Absolutely.
I think that the rich, it depends upon, it can be both, because the rich they've got plenty, but they want more.
Mhm.
I think like Coral said, the ones that are the have-nots or that are unsatisfied with their lot in life are the ones that start the revolutions.
Yeah.
So,
Well, and I was thinking, the revolution in France and then in Russia, and I'm sure there are others, but those are the two that come to mind first for me.
Let me throw some information out for you, see how this affects your statement.
Okay.
How about George Washington? Was he rich or was he poor?
He was rich.
He was very rich.
And who led the revolution?
Hey, madam.
And he was rich too.
But he started it.
Yeah.
Who fought
Yeah.
the battles?
And then,
George Washington?
He fought the battles by himself?
No.
Well-
He brought people with him.
But there were richer
But he
people
sent
than
the
that.
privates out of the.
The privates were out there wanting to get killed.
But
I
there
think
were,
that-
Road
there were
across
more
the
than,
river.
He did cross the river.
Yeah, you gotta give him that.
he didn't battle.
But
In
it
the
was
back.
against.
Jane's got her hand up, let her speak.
I think the better statement is economy drives the wars. And sometimes it is the rich that say, let me just say Hitler. Let's go with the Hitler example. He said to his German people, the Jewish people are the reason why you are poor. So follow me into this revolution. Everybody said, okay. And so they went and did all the atrocities in order to get their food. That's what happened in Germany. And so I think that the rich can exploit the poor. And George Washington, he didn't exploit it, but it was because of the way that England was exploiting with the taxation of our country and just bleeding us dry that he saw that we were going for. That's what our leader said. So economy drives wars. Not always the poor started, but it always
Well,
gets started
if you're
because of the
poor, that's
economy.
part of the economy.
Yeah.
And they're the uncomfortable, they're the ones
Yeah.
who are agitated. If
They're
you're
the
comfortable, you're gonna say,
vulnerable. I
"Life's
say
good."
that they are the vulnerable. They're gonna follow whoever wants to lead them. And sometimes it's
Whether it's
Sometimes
good or
they're
bad.
right.
sometimes it's people who don't have any good values at all. And sometimes,
So sometimes the rich can lead a trend, some change.
well, George had his good points, George Washington. He was a slave owner, and I learned as a kid that his teeth were made out of wood, but that was a lie. And well, I was a little upset about that. I said, "Tell Peter."
I didn't know that till now.
Really?
Really?
Yeah.
I thought they were wooden.
His teeth were slaves'
They were
teeth.
slave teeth.
Ooh,
No, I did not know
that
that.
bad I did not know.
There's some book out there, all the things we are taught that are.
We read history all we want, but the truth is a little harder.
Well, okay, so sometimes, wealthy people can be.
Well, they were
be
righteous
pessimistic.
causes. And there were righteous causes and the founders, our forefathers, mothers, all kind of looked at the king and the burden they were putting on the colonies, one country yet came, but they knew they had to do something. And so at times, yes, you're going to
Yeah.
have
Okay,
But that's
people
what-
who have
Yeah,
okay,
the
so,
money and the wherewithal to support your
This
side.
Martin Luther King, he wasn't poor, was he?
Yeah.
He was poor?
He was a priest, he was a minister.
Well, I know
Not
that he was
everybody
middle
can
class.
He was also black, and no, he
Well,
wasn't.
true, but
wealthy.
he led this movement. He's Liz's hero.
okay,
He started that
He-
kind of
the
movement.
Poor People's Campaign.
Yeah,
Right, and I'm sure that their coffers got money from people to
right.
carry out,
Sure.
but I don't think he
Okay.
personally was wealthy.
April,
Well, I was gonna say, no matter who starts the wars or who starts a conflict, the poor are always the buck.
Yeah.
The poor are the people fighting it
Yeah,
and usually dying for the cause,
yeah. That's
But of
true.
course, that's because there are so many of them.
sadly.
Well, not everybody can lead, and you have to have personality that will draw people to follow you.
Charisma.
And sometimes that makes the difference of who the leader is.
okay, so we may have rich leaders that lead the war, who do we record in history though?
Sadly, the winners,
Yeah.
Winners, okay.
the winners and the people in the back that sit there and go, yeah, you guys go over there.
And the men.
As it should be.
So who documents the history? It's usually from the perspective of the wealthy.
Yeah, and the winners.
And she said, Theoharis says revolutionary stories are often, not always, but often not recorded. They are left out or co-opted, she says, or rendered as just disruptions, not as a favorable change. Josephus, everybody's heard Josephus.
Yep.
He recorded history back in the 1st century. He wrote from the wealthy perspective, according to Theoharis. And he always, in his writings, he portrays these prophetic leaders who are trying to oppose the ruling class. He treats them as demagogues and radicals. Does that sound like somebody else might be in that class? Jesus, maybe?
Yeah.
Anyway, so what happened when the elites who feared Jesus' actions, what happened to him? Well, Jesus got executed.
Yeah, I was gonna say, he's gone.
For what? For what crime?
Rabble rousing.
Sedition,
Yeah.
which is
Yeah.
a political crime.
Right.
I'm just, he was kind of one of these revolutionaries, and it sounds like. Theoharis says the efforts of the powerful to control oppressed people's access to the Bible shows that they recognize that the Bible is a revolutionary document, because when the oppressed people read it, they erupt. What happened to the slaves in America? Were they allowed to read the Bible?
No,
They read it, but it was against the law.
They actually took chunks of it out.
Yeah.
So they couldn't,
A lot of them
they
couldn't
only
read.
got a part of it.
Yeah.
well, it was illegal for
It
them
was
to
illegal
they
for
could
them to
read,
read.
right.
Yeah,
So does that kind of support what she was saying about this revolutionary document?
sure.
Do we look at the Bible as a revolutionary document, really?
No, we don't generally. But if you really look at it, then yes, it can be you
How-
can see the revolution in
How
it.
do you do that?
Well, as you dive deeper into the meaning and
Is that
The
reading
history.
between the lines, so to speak?
It's a hopeful,
Contents.
if there's more hope in it,
Or-
You know, when we looked at,
and that's a revolutionary document.
when we
it's
looked
doing
at our
your
church
sorry.
going into Africa and India and sharing the word, for them it was brand new and it was revolutionary. I think we've just been brought up with it. So it's just part of our everyday here.
Okay.
So you
I
I
have to
mean,
do
we're a
your
country based off of a
exegetical study.
revolutionary document.
April, say that again.
We're a country started on a revolutionary document.
Not the
It's true.
Bible though.
No, not the Bible.
No, but we like revolutionary documents in this country.
Although the Bible did have some to do with the beginnings of our country, because they were coming here for religious freedom.
All right, yeah.
Yeah, but were they free when they got here?
No.
No.
Puritan folks. No, they don't.
Well, I think,
Just
yeah, I
Just
think Theoharis would say that if you read between the lines, Jesus emerges as a revolutionary social leader.
Absolutely.
Some of us, I think, will disagree with that, but so do the gospel writers downplay Jesus? Do you think they downplay Jesus as a revolutionary leader? And if they do, why do you think they do that?
Because they want they want the hope to come through, the promise of a better life to come through. Instead of the, like, oppressiveness that was going on in the world around them.
But some of them, I would say no, because they wrote for their audience. And I was going to say, was it Mark that had kind of a revolutionary kind of slant? Who is it? Which gospel was it said, blessed are the poor, and then basically a couple of lines later said that the rich, you've got you've got your reward. So,
Anybody want to?
I would think that they're trying to keep it low key because, you have found out that oftentimes we're killed or in prison.
Well, I would go back to Quarles writing for the audience. If you're writing to the Romans, you want the Romans to look good or bad?
Well, that's who I think Luke was writing to,
Okay, so back to the story about Jesus being anointed at the house of Simon the leper in Bethany. There's all this context with this story we've been discussing, where he says the poor you will always have with you. She points out that Bethany means house of the poor. So you got a poor man staying at the house of the poor with a leper. So why was he staying in Bethany? Why do you think he was there?
he was on his way to Jerusalem, or was it between his?
Well, he's been to Jerusalem and he
Came back and
came back.
so it's in between his trips to Jerusalem.
Well, remember, kids, this is right before he gets crucified, so
Yeah.
he didn't go back on trips. Well, was it convenience? Bethany's handy, it's not far away.
Yeah.
And he had a
The
follower there?
suburbs.
Was that
And he had a follower there?
follower?
Yeah, Pete Fresh.
Maybe he had friends there.
Yeah.
Maybe they friends, maybe this is a place of refuge. People where other people were poor, they'd protect him. Maybe he couldn't afford to stay anywhere else.
I don't think they have Holiday Inn.
So,
I mean, he was born in a manger, so.
yeah, well, that's another story about him being poor. So when he was at Simon's house, he was sharing a meal. Who was he sharing it with?
Simon the leper and his disciples.
Well, who else was there? Well, there was the leper, at least one, Simon. Women. Okay. And I don't know if it comes out in the story, but there's evidently he has meals with people of all classes.
Well, yeah, they frowned on him when he went to the taxpayer's house.
Mayor, tax collector.
Tax collector, sorry.
So Jesus keeps company with all sorts of people.
Yeah.
Some who aren't too reputable, evidently.
Well, if you're healthy, you don't need a physician.
She says that she thinks that, well, actually, Jesus says this, that the people who he associates with are the ones who make up the kingdom of God. What do you think about that?
That's tricky.
Do you agree with that, or do you think that's what he was saying?
Yeah.
I'm gonna go with what she said.
Okay.
How about,
What is his anointing? I didn't really have a good, I probably don't understand this. She said that his anointing amplified his teachings, acts of protest, and his stories where he fed people. Does anybody have a explanation? How does Jesus' anointing amplify his teachings, feedings, and acts of protest?
Very typically, anoint people unless they're a fire or a.
Okay,
We talked about that a couple weeks ago.
and so this is setting him. Would this be like setting him apart for?
Yeah.
And so gives him added authority, or I'm asking a question.
Elevates his
We can
message.
get into a big, long discussion
Okay, I only have 3 minutes, so.
when Jesus becomes the Christ.
Okay,
And at least one school of thought is that when he's anointed in Bethany,
at Bethany.
that's the beginning of his kingship or his.
Okay,
He went up a level.
okay,
And the interesting thing is he's anointed by an unknown woman, sometimes referred to as a prophetess, but he really isn't identified at all. But he's not.
well, in the past, prophets have been the ones who anointed kings.
Right.
So if you view this as anointing the kingship, that sort of makes her
Yeah.
prophet. Okay.
Don't you think that's why the Romans finally agreed to be Christians is because the message was getting out of hand and they needed to control the message.
Did Constantine co-op the
Yeah,
message?
Yeah.
yeah. And then because it was in Latin and they took it away from the poor people, they could control the message with their own sermons. So who knows how many of these stories came out? We don't know in those early 100 years or whatever of Christianity. All we've read in our history of Christianity is all of the learned and the rich explaining what Christianity means and what is the Holy Trinity. We don't really hear about the poor in those first 100 years because they controlled them.
That's one of the ways that wealthy stay wealthy.
Exactly. So Martin Luther came and blew that up a little bit, but
Keep in mind that the Bible didn't exist back then.
Well, the New Testament,
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
they had a tour of it.
Yeah.
Okay, as a poor man himself, is Jesus pitting himself against the poor? No.
no,
No.
Spiritualizing the poverty and problems of the people around him? No. Is he challenging the status quo and promoting justice, or reminding his followers of the Deuteronomic code to forgive debts, release slaves, and be generous?
Yeah.
Well,
These are kind of giveaways, but yeah. Is he passing responsibility for the mission onto his disciples at this anointing meal? Because what does he say after he says about the poor? What does he say then? I won't always be here.
He's not gonna be around.
So what does that suggest? If I'm not around,
It's up to you to take it on
so,
and keep going.
so she says, include with it, in the poor are the foundation of Jesus' movement to bring God's reign to earth. So I'll stop there. Thanks for all the participation.